How's it going, everybody? Take a look. It is kicked off, dried as much as it's going to be. Keep in mind, the polyester resin will be a little tacky until we do that final coat on it, which contains wax. It's going to be a little tacky, so just be aware. Probably on the first day of letting it dry, it was like super tacky, and now it's just barely. But you'll notice it when we're doing the stringers and we do the floor. You'll really notice it there. But there's a wax that will mix into the final coat to make it where it doesn't have that texture, and basically preps it for being ready for paint. You can see here, picked up a few things. There's my drain tube made out of brass. Another thing we notice, and I notice here, and don't worry about these, you'll see these little bitty gaps where the resin didn't take all the way in there. I'll show you how we're gonna fix that. But yeah, nothing to really worry about. This is on the lower side too, so not a big deal. We'll get it fixed. There's gonna be a lot of tips and tricks I'm gonna teach you all when it comes to doing the transom. In my opinion, the transom may be considered the most important piece. So walk this over to the boat here. It's been raining a lot, so keep in mind when you're doing your project and you put the transom in place, you will not be able to drain anything from the bottom of the boat. So you can see, went ahead and made an easy 2-inch cut all the way across. All right, one more time. We got our left and right. Yep. Let's go ahead and see if it'll drop in place. It looks pretty good so far. All right. Let's see if we can wiggle it on in here. Grab this side over here. There it goes. Drop right in place. Little low on this side, a little high over here. So we'll just move it around and see how it's gonna fit. And keep in mind, it's not too late to come in here and trim this up. You can see we're a little bit too far over, so let's see if we can reach our hand in here and scoot this over a little bit. Looks like we're close, so what I'm gonna do is just move it over just a little bit more so we can even up this top side, and hopefully everything looks great. We can see it's a little bit right there, a little bit touching here, not a big deal. We can live with that. I think it came out pretty good. In terms of it, the look on top up here, nice and smooth. There's a few high sides I'm gonna probably come back in here and flatten out a little bit, and then we'll go over it again with some resin. Remember too, we talked about how we're gonna take our 1708 and we're gonna wrap it around in this area here to kind of join this back section. And as we go down here, it's still gonna be kind of a problem, and we're gonna have to consider that when we take the 1708 and wrap it. You wanna try to make sure you don't leave any voids in here. So we're gonna try to make this, so you can see we're a little high right here. Hard to say what happened, when you get the clamps on it. It's flat here, flat there, but it looks like it got off a little bit. That could have been my grinder, but we're gonna get in and kind of make a bevel on this side, just so when we wrap it around, we don't have any issues. We may not be able to do much on this side because we'd have to effectively kind of sand down here. And I'm not against doing that. Like I said, the thing that's gonna make or break this transom is right here. So if we have to sand down this guy a little bit to make sure everything looks good, we'll probably end up doing that, but we'll see. But for right now, I do want to make sure this whole surface is flat, and we're going to create a bevel on this side, so we'll probably sand this down a little bit. Got the bevel put on it, rounded out the corners real well, sealed everything. I think it came out pretty good. There's a few spots that I'm going to sand before installing it, but overall I thought this came out pretty nice. You can see in the background, we've got some 2x4s. I decided to go with 2x4s to mount this transom in place because it's pretty common. I was gonna use steel tubing. I know some of you all may have access to welding machines and some other fancy clamping devices, but I figured, why not just use 2x4s? Everybody, for the most part, has access to those. So that's how we're gonna mount this transom in today. you're looking at doing your own project and you've got some other ideas on how you're going to mount yours, feel free to consider those as well. But pretty much everybody I know has got 2x4, so that's how we're going to mount this guy here. You can see even the edge is sealed up pretty good. And just looking at it, doesn't it look like one continuous piece of marine grade plywood? Overall thickness, I did measure it, 1 5/8, and it is completely sealed and watertight for all intents and purposes. So pretty proud of it. I think this will be able to hold that outboard motor, no problems. Now we just need to get it mounted. The 2x4s that I got, I definitely made sure that they were straight ahead of time. They're considered the premium studs, so that's why I went with those over there. But you definitely want to check your 2x4s. Don't just grab two that you had in the backyard sitting there for a year. You want to make sure you get good ones. You can see as well, we've got some all thread. This may be kind of tricky to get in your area, maybe not, but this is kind of what we're looking at here. It's just threaded pieces of steel, right? And then we just buy a bunch of washers. You've seen my other episodes where I rebuild transoms. This is pretty common. Got a lot of this laying around, so pretty much all you're going to need is enough to go through the 2x4 this direction, right? And then clamp onto your other 2x4 that's going to be on the back side. A lot of you all may be wondering what I'm talking about. So as we make the design out of this 2x4, you'll kind of see how it all comes together and why you need these to clamp in place. So definitely consider that. If you got some laying around, that's awesome, but you don't need any special like grade 8, or the high grade type of steel all thread, just so you know. We're not going to be putting that kind of clamping power on it, but yeah, make sure it's thick enough. I think this is 1/2 inch all thread. You can get it pretty much at most hardware stores. If you're just trying to use bolts, you may run into some issues because you need to be able to thread on both sides. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's go ahead. I'm going to show you all some ideas of how I'm going to mount this clamp, so to speak, right where we got to clamp the transom in place. I'm going to show you all how I'm going to do that using the existing hole that's in the back of the boat. So let's go take a look real quick and we'll talk about that. So this is that hole I was talking about. You've probably seen it in the prior episodes. All I'm gonna do is just slice this down because I can put this piece back in, no problem, super easy, right? And then I'm gonna have the 2x4 come in here and then clamp downwards and then go and span in that direction. So that's gonna be the idea. If you don't have a hole like that, right, an existing one like I do, just take your oscillating blade and just square out a place right there, and then also on this side if you want, so you can drive some 2x4s in there or square tubing, whatever you got available, and use that as a clamp. And then obviously it's going to clamp to the back side as well. So I just got lucky, right? And all I need to do is just notch that right there. So that's all I'm going to do myself with this project. But as you're looking at doing this yourself, you'll have to get creative. It's a little bit more fiberglass work you'll have to do, and you'll have to sand and gel coat a little bit more if needed. But yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's get back to the actual transom itself and talking about how we're going to make that clamping device in here so it squeezes this back section against the new transom and we don't leave any unusual voids, so to speak, in there. The clamps made out of 2x4s are completed. You can see here we've got a front and we've got a back as well. Nothing too crazy. Like I said, in doing this, I wanted to make a clamping device that you all at home could easily do with 2x4s, a drill bit, and various types of screws, right? But nothing too crazy. I did have some metal clamps over there that I was going to use. These little reinforcement guys, I'm not sure if that's what we refer to them as, but anyway, you get what I'm saying. I was going to use some of those, and I said, nah, let's just use screws. We can toenail them in, and then we drove some in this way. I'll tell you what, I was twisting them back and forth to see how strong these are. Feel pretty good about it. You see here, we got some 45s cut. The reason why we've got these 45s here is because when it's inside the boat, I want to be able to see this area right here, and it's kind of cramped inside that boat, right, as it is. So having that 45 there, you can see on the opposing side on the back, decided to cut that off. I'm not 100% sure if that's going to really achieve what I'm looking for, but I did think about that. I said, yeah, I probably want to get rid of that. Probably more so for the upper corners, because it's kind of hard to see up there. But all things considered, it seemed like a good idea at the time. We'll see how it turns out when we get it in the boat. You can see the all thread. That is probably the same all thread that I've used to mount 2 other transoms in 2 other boats in the past here. You can see it's just, I think this is 1/2 inch, 2 washers, right? 2 nuts. Make sure they thread too, because you're gonna have to cut this to size. So before you put this in the boat, make sure you thread both sides to make sure it works. I'd hate for you to have your resin dry on you because you forgot to check and make sure these will thread up. But that's the easiest way. I guess you could probably use clamps as well, but we're gonna tighten these 2 together pretty well. So we want to make sure in doing so we don't have any issues, but they line up pretty good. I tried to copy the exact measurements and made sure that they were straight across, and on the bottom side as well. Put plenty of screws in there. Like I said, my goal was to have something that you all could duplicate at your house. Nothing too crazy. We got our saw here as well, but that's it. What we're going to do on the next episode is we are actually, I know it sounds crazy, we are actually going to put this transom in place. We're going to apply the resin. We've got some compounds that we're going to talk about as we're making the recipe, so to speak, of how we bond the transom to the actual boat system. So I hope you liked the video, everybody. Hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to the channel. Leave some comments in the comments field below. I always like to read them. And we will catch you on the next episode. Have a good one, everybody.